So, 5 promotions in like 5 or 6 years, right? What's going on? Super high performer, or
I think it's just opportunity. It looks really impressive, but I think because we've grown massively, the company's grown massively and the people with it, and you either grow with the company or not. And I genuinely think it's opportunity based.
I'm really interested in this. I just want to spend a little bit more time exploring this matrixed organization because I would say at Instant Impact we are aspirationally matrixed. Could you just chat us through what you mean by a matrixed organization, please?
Yeah, it's just non-traditional hierarchy in terms of your reporting line or on a project that you're on. So matrix management structures, you tend to have multiple managers for different reasons. So like I said before, you could have a growth manager, a performance manager, and a project manager, depending on what how many people you have in your organization.
Can you have all three? Can one person have all three?
You could do, yeah. The project manager will just be like a fired up pod on a project, right? So they're your project manager for that project, and then you could then be with another project manager for a different time. But that's why it's good to have a consistent performance manager, because if you're utilized in different ways in different projects, you will get feedback from those stakeholders, from those people. But your performance manager is your constant.
This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Felix Mitchell. Now, career progression and even company structures are starting to look fundamentally different than 20 years ago. Now, whilst both of those things are very much still alive and kicking in most organizations, there are some really interesting stories and anecdotes coming out of fast growth, innovative companies where people carve out entirely new paths that simply didn't exist when they started. And we're at this fantastic breaking point where AI is coming in, everything's being reinvented. So it feels like this is going to become a big thing of the future. Our guest today is a perfect example of this new way of working and thinking. Alistair Fenn is the Global Chief of Staff at Tide, the fintech bank for business. In just 5 years, he's moved through 6 different roles, from people manager all the way up to the right-hand person of the Chief Administrative Officer. It's a career path that would have been impossible if he was working at a giant bank. And I think we're going to find some really interesting learnings from his journey. Alistair, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited.
So, 5 promotions in like 5 or 6 years, right? What's going on? Super high performer, or
I think it's just opportunity. Yes, it looks really impressive, but I think because we've grown massively, the company's grown massively and the people with it, and you either grow with the company or not. And I genuinely think it's opportunity based. And I'm not saying that because the company's posed opportunities, but I think it predominantly is the opportunities that you find within the roles that you've got, and also the changes that we've made to the team structures have allowed me to be positioned or put in a position that's different to what I was used to.
yeah, that's really interesting. And I think as we sort of, we've touched on this topic in previous episodes before, the sort of opportunities that present themselves in rapidly changing organizations.
Mm.
How different is it being a team member in a business like Tide compared to a company where I guess maybe less change happens, or you're a bit more of a cog in a giant machine? Is the kind of opportunity you've been able to carve out for yourself something that can only happen in a smaller, faster growth business?
I don't know how to answer that in the best way, because previously I worked in a more traditional, like an insurance company that was more traditional. You had certain levels of certain roles, and that was it. In Tide, we we don't have that. We have a progression framework throughout all the roles that we have. So you could get hired at one level and make your way through it based on competency frameworks, but they are built in line with the growth of the company. At some point, we may get to the point where we don't have the roles. So we're not there yet. We're constantly growing. So where we don't have the stop line, I guess, then it will continue to grow, but it will get there. All organizations get there. There's a reason that the insurance company I worked in before had that stopping level, whereas we don't have that at the moment because we are growing. And it's the same for, I would say yes then in answer to that question, because we're still growing. The people can still grow with it, and the opportunities come from that growth.
Yeah. And I guess maybe some of these roles that exist now, maybe some of the roles that you're in, maybe they didn't exist in the business when you
Definitely
joined.
not. Tide very much, my experience, I can't speak for everyone at Tide, but my experience in Tide is predominantly the roles are based on the problems that we're solving versus traditional roles. So right now, the role that I'm in is I am a chief of staff to the CAO, and like we were talking about before, I'm kind of attached to a person, so a stakeholder. So that's how our chief of staffs work. The other chief of staff, they're attached to the CPO, the CEO, and they work predominantly on things with them. But that doesn't mean to say that it's not going to change. We might have, actually we're going to be hiring more of our roles, and as we hire more of our roles, does that mean we become our own entity, our own team? Could do.
And I guess maybe that's because, I'm just guessing here, lots of chief of staffs. Maybe that's because you've got quite a lot of strategic projects on. You're innovating and shifting, and
it's a lot of balance. So I like to say in my role at the moment, I predominantly feel, I don't know if you know this movie, but have you seen Nanny McPhee?
You know what? I haven't. As you were asking, as you said, I don't know if you've seen this movie. I was like, I'm pretty sure I will have. I'm a big film guy, but Nanny McPhee, I have not.
Basically like a modern day Mary Poppins.
What's not to love?
Yeah, I agree. And she says to the children that she's looking after, if you need me and don't want me, then I need to stay. But if you want me and do not need me, then I have to leave. I feel like that as a chief of staff or someone in this role at this company, that happens to me a lot. I go where you get put in a project and people are like, why are you here? And you're like, oh, I kind of have to prove every time why I'm there. And it's predominantly just looking at what's going on in that project at that time and how to get it to the next point. And then you come away from it. And I feel like that a lot about careers, progression, opportunity. When I say opportunity, it really isn't just the company that poses an opportunity. It's also about how you find those opportunities within the smaller things as well. So if you set objectives, if you have OKRs, if you have goals that you want to achieve, it's not just about the goals that you achieve, it's what's the next level of that goal. So you could have, I don't know, I need to deliver X project, but how you deliver that project is important. Do you want to be seen as a leader in that? Do you want to be seen as a contributor or a collaborator? What is your personal goal within that project as well? And how do you level that up? So if there's 3 roles, there's a leader, there's a contributor, there's a collaborator. Okay, I'm currently at collaborator level, but I want to go to the next level in this project. So I'm going to use this project as that opportunity to show that I can do that to the people there. It's really difficult to do without stepping on toes. And luckily at Tide, we don't have that culture of stepping on toes. We have a really strong one team value. And that means in everything that we do. And we kind of look out for each other, which is what I like about it.
Yeah, I really want to. Tide sounds like a really special place from what we've spoken about, what I've heard about the business. I'd love to. I think you've mentioned a couple of things already that kind of create the environment where, I guess, a bit more of a wiggly career is possible. So you've mentioned correct me if I get this wrong, like one team mindset, and you've mentioned having levels that are common across the whole business.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that you've put in place that allows for the squiggly?
So before, when I joined Tide, I joined as their first people manager, and that role was in the tech and product space, and they were looking for non-technical engineering managers essentially. I come from a training background. I was a performance consultant, and then I worked with engineering teams on how to create metrics on their performance. It's really hard, and it's really tricky to prove. It's one of those things where you're trying to put KPIs on something that probably shouldn't be there.
So interesting.
Yeah, it was.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, it was mad. And then I became like a software engineering manager, but a non-technical. So there's in the tech and product industry, you can have technical engineering managers, you can have non-technical, but it really depends on the hierarchical structure that you have to support it. So that was on a matrix. We were on a matrix management structure before. So they had an engineer at Tide would have a clinical manager or a people manager who dealt with all the kind of clinical side of management. So the growth, I say clinical, it's not a bad word, by the way. Sounds like it's really bad. I mean, in the sense of like their growth, their performance, their opportunities, working on their one-to-ones, working on gathering feedback, their performance.
The like human.
The human element, yeah. So very related to HR, right? Or people partnering, but more on a granular level than a wider partner that's responsible for a client group of like 200.
Is that normal within the software engineering world?
No, so that there's like two sides of it. You can then have a traditional hierarchical structure where you report into an engineering manager.
And that person knows how to code and do all the technical stuff.
Yes. Whereas in a more matrix, agile environment, sometimes not. You can also have more traditional hierarchical structures of an engineering manager an engineer reporting into an engineering manager. But that is the positive thing about a matrix management organization. It allows for these roles to pose, or these problems that need to be solved by people. So that creates a role in itself, right? But we've now moved from, as I progressed and I became the lead of the team, then the head of the team, I created the function because I was the first one. So I brought my experience from before, then placed it in Tide, and then we grew that function, and I had to get lots of stakeholders to sign off, but I was also reporting into two people at the time. So I was reporting into the CTO and the CAO, and the roles overlap so much with HR that then when we did change to a more hierarchical structure, my team then were able to slot into partnering roles, and now gone from people management to partnering roles. And I now am doing what I'm doing for the CAO, purely because I've been reporting into her since I joined Tide. So 5 years ago, she still had a toe in the water with my role because it was so niche and new that they wanted to make sure that it worked. And it worked for a while the organization was at that stage of its growth. And now we're in a different stage where it needs something else, and it needs that more hierarchical structure in order to move it forward. I say need lightly, but it definitely...
That's sort of the optimal...
yeah, it just needs a shift. Everything should be changing. And I think an organization that can change like that, we may change back, or we may change into a completely different structure. But I think an organization that allows itself to breathe in that way is healthy. But it does create this illusion of, I guess, moving from those roles or that growth. Like you said, do you get that in a more traditional organization? Probably not. And it does open you up to try and think about, well, I'm a head level now. And if I was to put myself as a head level in a different organization, is that the same thing? Probably not. When you go through recruitment, or when you go through a process to get a new role, you're constantly assessing what your bar is, or what your level and what that organization's bar is, and if you're the same. And I do think that we kind of need to change our processes, or a recruitment process around what problem you're trying to solve versus the role you're trying to...
Hey, preaching to the choir on that one. And even more traditionally, hierarchical organizations can have a really different definition of what a director is, or head is, or all the rest of it. And the more we can gear up around people's suitability to solve the problems you need them to solve, the more likely it is that they're going to come into the business and hit expectations
Yeah, I hope so.
when they do. I'm really interested in this. I just want to spend a little bit more time exploring this matrixed organization, because I would say at Instant Impact, we are aspirationally matrixed, in that for the last year, we've been becoming much more matrix, but there's still elements of hierarchical and siloed bits within the organization, which are eroding. But I'm just really interested in how that plays out in a scaling business. So when you say matrix, just for the audience, oh, I forgot. I'm going to do a definition for the audience. CAO is Chief Administration Officer, which I haven't seen in that many companies. So anyone wondering what that is, that's what that is. So we'll get back to definition. Could you just chat us through what you mean by a matrixed organization, please?
Yeah, it's just non-traditional hierarchy in terms of your reporting line or on a project that you're on. So matrix management structures, you tend to have multiple managers for different reasons. So like I said before, you could have a growth manager, a performance manager, and a project manager, depending on what how many people you have in your
Can
organization.
you have all three? Can one person have all three?
You could do, yeah. The project manager will just be like a fired up pod on a project, right? So they're your project manager for that project. And then you could then be with another project manager for a different time. But that's why it's good to have a consistent performance manager. Because if you're utilized in different ways in different projects, you will get feedback from those stakeholders, from those people. But your performance manager is your constant. So that's why you have this performance manager. But usually what happens in non-matrix organizations, that project manager is also your manager and also your growth manager. So they're responsible for everything for you. So really and honestly, your relationship with that person is top. Whereas a matrix organization allows you to not have that amount of pressure to impress one person.
How interesting is that? I guess it does two other really cool things that you've touched on already. So first of all, because your growth manager or your performance manager might not be in your team, I guess they'd be able to say, actually, Alistair would be so good on this project. And so it probably creates that movement that you were talking about before.
Yeah, and that gives you that wiggle that you were saying about before. Like, how do you just, that's the opportunities that you kind of have in a matrix organization. But Tide is the tech and product team in Tide. I'm no longer in the tech and product team. I'm predominantly in the HR or the people team. And we still work in that mindset. I report into one person now, not multiple, but I have a team. There's a team of us as leadership team, and then the teams that we work in within the people team and the legal team and all of the people that we work with, whilst we still have that traditional hierarchical reporting lines, when it comes to projects or work that we're delivering, it is still that matrix organization. It's about all working to one goal. Yes, there are roles within that. Like I said, you have a project leader or you have a contributor, but that really comes down to being really structured and proactive in your planning, how you plan to deliver something. And really it comes down to letting the work speak for itself.
Which I think quite a lot of people would be scared by, but even more so would probably be really excited by, right?
I agree. I think I'm still relatively young and haven't worked in, and I think you could argue that I'm relatively young to be a chief of staff, and it's something that I didn't study for. So I've kind of fell into it, but I think that happens to a lot of people throughout their career. And if you let it happen, if you go with it, and just think, yeah, this may not be the prescribed order of things. I mean, I know in certain roles or certain professions there is traditional hierarchy for a reason, and it's going to stay like that for a long time. And you're a junior, then you're a senior, then you're a manager, etc., so on and so forth. And that is important in some roles, but in scaling organizations and where you can have that freedom and that ability to create those structures that allow people to move more freely, it also allows people like me to grow, which is, I think, it's about finding those places and what fits for you at that time in your career. I may not be a chief of staff forever, And I'm currently an interim head of workplace experience as a chief of staff, like I was saying before. And I think what's interesting here is being able to, I guess, ultimately not worry about the prescribed model.
Yeah. So you and I haven't known each other for a huge amount of time, but I like it's pretty obvious to me that I think some people listening to this might be like, wow, Alistair, it's all very well. Like you just got all these opportunities and people tapped you on the shoulder for this, that, or the other. My guess is that actually what happened is that you saw an opportunity and said, oh, I'd really like to get involved. I'm really interested in that, really interested in this. Well, first of all, am I right?
You are right.
Excellent.
Can I explain a little bit about
Please
why?
do.
Because it sounds very wishy-washy and lovely, but really and honestly, the way that I've progressed throughout my career is by I'm quite a pragmatic person, so I'm very action orientated. If something's not working, we iterate on it, or if it needs to change, and that's kind of how I apply that to my career as well. If it's not working, then it needs to change, or I need to do something about it. And that really comes down to about finding something that's right for me and my skill set, and just working on it for however long a period of time. And that's kind of why we have progression frameworks at Tide, like I said, about the roles. And if you're showing the competency of the level above you or the levels above you, then that's how you progress. It takes time to get there. I've been at Tide for nearly 5.5 years. My first promotion was because I was leveled wrong. So I came in at a lower level than I should have been, and the business recognized that and were like, yeah, you really should be this level. I'm like, cool. So then my second promotion from a more senior to a lead was really about how do I lead on certain projects to show that I am a lead. And that was what I did. And then from a lead to a head was really about how I went from that kind of smaller approach to leading projects to then leading bigger scaled strategic things. So it is based on a progression framework that we have. And I've just used that progression framework to my advantage, I guess.
No, that's very cool. I guess what's going through my head is it really makes sense how it works for you
For me.
individual level.
Yeah, agreed.
But with the way that the workplace is evolving, the way that companies are evolving, the fact that change and, like, I would say complete rewiring in a lot of cases is going to be necessary because of AI, because of other forces like companies, smaller and smaller companies starting to offshore and offshore their teams and set up entities in loads of different countries, just getting easier and easier. All of that means that the shape of organizations are changing pretty rapidly, which means that I think whether you're a scaling business or you're a more traditional business that's sort of staying the same size but changing, there's going to be tons of opportunity. What can people do to build that muscle of opportunism?
I honestly think it's about keeping yourself in the know. So whether that's strategically understanding the business's direction, understanding the direction certain teams are going in, that your team, you should constantly know, or at least be inquisitive and find out what's going on or what's the next step. And then you will know what those opportunities are. They don't pose themselves. Like being, I guess, pragmatic, or being a bit more of a pragmatic person. If the opportunity isn't there, I'll look somewhere else. I have been in Tide for the period of time because of the opportunities. I'm constantly looking for what's next or what's going to challenge me. And I think that's really important to opportunity as well, as how that poses the challenge to yourself. If you're not challenged in your role, or if you're not challenged by what's happening next, then you're not really solving the problems. The challenge brings the problems that you're solving. It's very easy to say that without being, without explaining or going into granular detail, but that's the if you zoom out.
No, I think it's really interesting. It really feels to me like the kind of the traditional. I mean, the traditional join a company until you're dead. Until you retire.
Yeah.
Okay, you did. That I think died a while ago, but I think that it's becoming more and more acceptable to say what you said, which is, look, I've got a career to think about here, and I want to enjoy my work. I want to be challenged by my work. If you can provide it to me, employer, fantastic. I will stay here until you can't.
Yeah.
But when you can't, I'll have an honest conversation with you and be like, look, I found something else. It's going to challenge me in a different way. I hope that's why. I think more and more people are happy with that.
I think it's because people are not seeing it as personal anymore. So it's not personal. No one's career is personal to anyone else except themselves. And that is fundamentally, really important, if you need to put yourself first. It sounds really selfish and like it sounds really like I'm egotistical. I actually don't have an ego in terms of my workload or what's going on, but in terms of my career, I want to be proud of it. And I want to be able to tell people, like doing this, I want to be able to tell people, I recorded a podcast today. I'm really proud of it.
So you should be.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm really proud to be asked.
Yeah.
But that's, I got asked because I asked the question at a conference and someone recognized it. But I asked that question because it was an opportunity. I found that as an opportunity to ask an important question. So that's what I did. I'm not constantly thinking about my career, by the way, but I think that's purely because it isn't personal. And all of my team and everyone that I've worked with, I always make sure that we instill that value. My manager now, who's the CAO, is in the exec. She instills that in the team. So it's not personal. It really is like about you, and that's
How cool is that?
you should just use like employers as a vessel for growth.
Because that's what they're doing
to us.
right? And there's an applicant tracking system called Pinpoint, and their CEO Tom Hackwell came on the podcast and did a fantastic. This is my favorite thing about the podcast, by the way. I don't need to read books because I do all my learning through having guests on here, and he synthesized. I believe it's the book called. Oh, come on! It's Reid Hoffman, and it's called. I don't know, but I will remember it later.
Okay.
But it's all around the false narrative that people have told. Employers tell employees, and employees tell employers, which is, I hire you, I pretend that I'm going to hire you forever, and you pretend that you're going to join the business forever. But actually, it's much more healthy to say what we've spoken about today. We have these problems that we want you to solve, and it's going to be about a couple of years for that. And we know that you've got a career, and where do you want to go in your career? Okay, well, you want to be a CFO one day. Great. Well, we can take you from finance manager to finance controller, we reckon. We can definitely got visibility over that. But let's have a chat in 2 years and see if we can provide you with that next step. See if you still want it. And if you don't, cool, we'll help you find the next thing.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than the carrot and the stick. Everyone that you talk to about progression is that, oh, my manager promised me a promotion and I didn't get it. So now I'm bitter and I'm angry and I don't want to do the things that I'm doing anymore. It just creates an environment where people are just unhappy. And I really think that creating processes and things to ensure that doesn't happen to people. So we have a fantastic review process at Tide, and it goes through certain levels of control in terms of we do a calibration session, which is where someone will put someone up for a promotion, and you have people talking about that person's impact to make sure that it's in line with the growth framework, not just their manager. It doesn't just rely on one person. It relies on a partner. It relies on a stakeholder as well. There's multiple people talking about that person's progression, but that's an opportunity in itself, right? And that also removes that, oh, I promised you this and you didn't get it. Because even if that manager did promise that promotion, there's a group of people making that decision. So it's not just that one person's decision. Yes, they're accountable for the message, but it also takes away that I'm going to promise you this.
I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think so too.
Now, I really want to go on to, because you're both someone that has lived this squiggly
Yes.
career.
It feels very strange talking about this.
Hey, it's all about strangeness.
Yeah.
But you've also been a people professional. You come from that world as well.
Yes.
I think we understand now. It's been really interesting talking about how it's worked for you as the individual going through this squiggly career. For the HR leaders who are listening to this, what kind of things can they put in place to allow the matrix organization to start off this matrix organization in their own?
Fundamentally, I would say research some of the methodologies or some of what could work for your teams and try it. So like I said before about being pragmatic, action orientated, try something. It doesn't have to work, and it's okay that if it doesn't. But as long as you're transparent, you tell the people that are involved in that, I'm going to fire up this project, but I want it to work slightly differently. I want it to work in this way. I want a project manager, I want contributors, and I want collaborators, and I want these roles for this reason, and I want to see how it works for us.
Oh, so you can just do it on a one project basis. So actually you can do it in a really low risk environment. That's so cool.
Try it and then see if it works for that project. Also, if it doesn't work for that project, analyze why. Do a retro. Think about get the team talking about what worked for them, what didn't, how they could change it for the next time. It's all about iteration. And that's kind of what matrix management is. It's about iterating. It doesn't have to, it needs to flow. If it works for that time, works for then, that's great. But like I said before, Tide isn't in that position anymore, but we still utilize that in certain projects and doing working on certain things. It's about iteration. So just try it. If it doesn't work, move on. But research, then try it. Doesn't work, move on. But if it does work, what can you apply it to next? And I feel like people should also apply that kind of to their career. It's got to work for you as well as working for the organization. It's like an alignment of three things: the organization, the strategy, your skill set, and also what you want. Is it what you want? Is it not what you want? You have to ask yourself these things all the time. Be inquisitive.
I think you're so right. And so many of us sort of sleepwalk through these things.
I agree. And it's really easy to not ask yourself questions constantly when you're complacent? Comfortable. When you're comfortable, like right now, I've been in my role for a year and a bit, and I'm comfortable. I'm really happy where I am.
Time to push it.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, when is the next step? But I think it's also knowing when that's right. And if it's not right for you at that time, don't do it. Wait until you feel like you're in a position to put yourself in that position, because it can be hard. It's really challenging to do those things.
And not all of us want to, you can't sprint the whole time.
I agree.
People go through phases of wanting to do the comfortable bit, the aggressive bit, and everything in the middle.
Also positioning yourself to do that in the company that allows you to do that at the right time. So you can go to a company where you know you have to be comfortable for a bit because something else is going on in your life. That's okay. But it's about knowing that, zooming out, constantly zoom out and assess if is this the right thing for the right time, and is this the right thing for me right now? If it's not, then you need to change it.
And on that note, I think that's all we've got time for. Alistair, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.